I'm Henry Shuldiner, an investigator with Inside Crime based in Colombia. Today I'll be reading an abbreviated version of a recent investigation we published on Narcosubmarines, which are increasingly used by drug traffickers to move cocaine from production zones to the rest of Latin America, the Caribbean, and beyond. Our research shows these submarines are surfacing in more places than ever. Most are relatively unsophisticated, allowing traffickers to flood the seas with cheap, low-profile vessels that are unable to fully submerge but are still incredibly hard to detect. These subs can carry massive loads of cocaine and often slip past authorities. To understand this trend, we analyzed 240 seizures to uncover where these vessels are built, where they're headed, and how this innovation is reshaping global trafficking routes. This is an abridged version of Under the Radar, but hundreds of Narcosub seizures tell us about global cocaine routes. Read by me, Henry Shuldiner, a co-author along with Sam Woolston. Narcosubs have been around for decades. Drug traffickers use them to move cocaine, mostly from Colombia's Pacific coast to Central America or Mexico. But recent seizures show something new. The subs are becoming more common, traveling further and getting harder to detect. In just the past year, authorities seized a narcosub carrying 6.5 tons of cocaine near the Azores Islands, found an abandoned vessel off the coast of Sierra Leone, and intercepted another in the Pacific, headed for Australia, with more than 5 tons of cocaine on board. These long-distance journeys show that narcosubs are no longer just a regional tactic. They're going global. Inside Crime analyzed hundreds of cases involving semi-submersible vessels seized around the world to understand what this growing trend reveals about drug trafficking routes and the criminal networks behind them. Most narcosubs aren't actually submarines. They can't fully dive underwater. Instead, they ride just above the surface, with only a small part visible, making them hard to detect. Authorities commonly refer to this vessel type as a low-profile vessel. A typical low-profile vessel is about 50 feet long, with a slender, elongated shape. It typically runs on a diesel or gas engine and is usually made of wood and fiberglass, materials that are harder to detect by radar. The cockpit and the exhaust pipes stick out above the water, but the rest of the vessel stays just below the surface. Because they sit so low in the water, these vessels have a tiny silhouette, making them hard to see at sea. Their sleek, hydrodynamic shape also leaves almost no wake, which makes spotting them from the air just as difficult. There are several variations of the vessels, and traffickers constantly tweak their designs, adapting to law enforcement tactics, part availability, and access to skill builders. Around 2016, many traffickers began using outboard motors instead of inboard ones, since they're easier to install and more widely available in the remote areas where the subs are built. These vessels are also painted in camouflage colors that match the ocean and the conditions expected during the trip. Subs moving through the shallow Pacific waters are often teal, while those crossing the stormy Atlantic are usually dark blue or gray. Low-profile vessels can cost as little as $150,000 to build, according to the Colombian Navy, though most estimates put the price between $1 and $2 million. They usually need a crew of 3 or 4 pilots for the journey. While low-profile vessels are more likely to be intercepted since they don't fully submerge, they're also easier to build and operate than fully submersible ones. Another key type of vessel is the narco torpedo, towable underwater containers built to carry large loads of drugs, usually 1 to 2 tons. They're attached to ships with long steel cables and can be towed, while submerged at depths of up to 90 feet. Narco torpedoes have become increasingly sophisticated. Some now include ballast systems and hydroplanes to help control their depth. In one 2005 case, U.S. authorities intercepted a torpedo with a radio buoy, allowing traffickers to release it to avoid capture and recover the cargo later. Fully submersible vessels are the most advanced type of narcosub. They can dive completely underwater, often reaching depths of up to 30 feet. These vessels can carry as much as 10 tons of cocaine and are undetectable by radar. They come equipped with advanced GPS and navigation systems. Building a fully submersible vessel is an enormous undertaking. It requires advanced engineering skills and costs between $2 and $4 million. But for traffickers, the investment pays off. These subs have only ever been found on land, suggesting that once they're at sea, they're nearly impossible to detect. Of the 240 Narcosub seizures analyzed by Inside Crime, more than half were built in artisanal shipyards along Colombia's Pacific coast. Colombia's western departments are covered in dense jungle and crisscrossed by rivers that lead to the sea. Hidden deep in estuaries, surrounded by thick vegetation and positioned near key waterways, these makeshift shipyards have become the heart of Narcosub construction. These hidden shipyards are usually in remote, deserted areas and operate as small hubs of criminal enterprise. They bring together drug suppliers, skilled builders, naval engineers, crew members, and security teams, along with well-funded criminal groups that finance the operation and can wait months for a return once the drugs finally reach their destination. Between 2019 and 2023, authorities uncovered dozens of these sites, 26 in Nariño, 10 in Cauca, and 3 each in Valle de Cauca and Chocó. Nariño and Cauca are 2 of Colombia's main coca-growing regions, so it makes sense that many artisanal shipyards are nearby. This way, the cocaine only has to travel short distances by land before being loaded onto Narcosubs. While most artisanal shipyards are concentrated along Colombia's Pacific coast, others have been discovered in Brazil, Venezuela, Guyana, and Suriname in recent years. This suggests that more traffickers are using these vessels to send cocaine directly to high-value European markets. In 2024, authorities seized a near-record number of Narcosubs, with at least 25 successful interdictions, according to data analyzed by Inside Crime. Most were caught along Pacific drug routes between South and Central America. In total, 81% of the vessels in our database were found in Pacific waters or along the Pacific coast. Colombian authorities aim to intercept these vessels in rivers and estuaries before they reach open water, where detection is much more difficult. Still, only about 1 in 4 Narcosub seizures happen on land or in rivers. Once at sea, interception becomes a major challenge, with success rates dropping as low as 5% depending on conditions, according to U.S. security officials. These subs are sometimes supported by a network of fishing boats and smaller vessels that act as refueling stations at key points along the route. While some Narcosubs can hold over 1,300 gallons of fuel, they may need to refuel earlier, depending on sea conditions or detours to evade authorities. As with all seizures, the data only captures Narcosub incidents known to law enforcement. Any estimate of actual interdiction rates or the number of subs operating in the region are stabs in the dark. Traffickers often scuttle their subs even after completing successful trips, making it hard for law enforcement to pinpoint where the drugs come ashore. Still, the sites of interdictions, beached vessels, and court testimony provide valuable clues. On the Pacific side, the long, lightly patrolled coastlines of Guatemala and southern Mexico have long served as key hubs for maritime and aerial drug shipments. Similarly, in the Atlantic, Narcosubs are often headed for Central America and southern Mexico. Traffickers also seem to be focusing more on Costa Rica. Between 2017 and 2019, authorities found 5 Narcosubs beached along the country's southern coast, an early sign of its growing role as a cocaine transshipment point for regional criminal groups. Seizures of transoceanic Narcosubs are still rare, but becoming more frequent. Since the first confirmed Atlantic crossing in 2019, 12 vessels have been caught trying to reach the coasts of Europe and Australia, 8 of them in 2024 and 2025 alone. Law enforcement often frames these seizures as victories, but the fact that criminal groups continue to load multi-ton shipments onto these vessels shows that the method remains highly effective, despite the risks and occasional interdictions. This was Under the Radar, what hundreds of Narcosub seizures tell us about global cocaine routes, one of the most recent investigations published by Inside Crime on May 16, 2025, co-authored by Sam Woolston and me, Henry Shuldiner. For more audio stories, podcasts, and long-form narrative journalism, make sure to follow us on Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, and YouTube. And to read more about the Narcosubs, drug policy, and cocaine trafficking in Latin America and the Caribbean, visit insidecrime.org.